Okay, so for today's lesson, there's a number of things that I'm going to ask you guys to do. The reason why I asked you guys to sit in your lab first is first part, what you guys are going to do is to record the result of your part 2 bacteria lab. Okay, record the result of your part 2 bacteria lab. Now, I'm going to open up the section. I kind of basically have your section of the lab of your plate sealed up. Now, for your lab, you have two things that you will need to do. I was going to say if you look onto the side, but then because Miss Lamb's class has nicely written up there. So, a couple of things you're going to do for your lab. Now, first off, for this lab here, you don't need to come up with any hypotheses, okay? This is only for part 2, okay? So for here, this is only part 2. So you're just doing part 2 observation. So part 2 observation. Remember, you have 4 quadrants. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 should be the negative control. 2, you have bacteria, but in a blank disk. 3 and 4, you have bacteria and a disk that's dipped in rubbing alcohol. Now, couple of things. First off, when you're dealing with writing down these observations, always do a compare and contrast against a black background and a white background, and you use whichever one gives you the more information. Okay, you can see more things. In this case, it will be the black background on the lab bench against the lab bench. You have a couple of things you need to do. First off, you need to record the shape of the colony and color. Now, for a lot of things, you can measure the zone of inhibition upside down, but for recording these kind of characteristics, you do have to do it from the right side up, okay? So, now, since you are mainly using one source, the sour milk, chances are for most of you, you should have one type of bacteria, okay? You can tell what type of bacteria it is, typically from the color. And then if you have any isolated dots, then you can describe, if you see like one dot like this, then you describe the shape of that, okay? So you describe the color, you can describe, if you see an isolated dot or colony, you describe how it looks like. If there's anything that stands out very differently, so in this group's plates, now all these background ones, the yellowish kind of that is the same type, but you do have like little chunks here that's really white dot and the edge is somewhat irregular. You would want to note that, you would want to comment on that. Now, if it is something that is touching 2 lines, because this is between section 4 and this is section 3, then you will want to say where was that, okay? In terms of the colony, in terms of shape and color, you want, and where it is, you want to write down that, oh, it's right on the dot between 3 and 4. Are we good so far? Now, zone of inhibition. Zone of inhibition, this is the quantitative observation and data that you guys are going to collect. Now, what you will notice is this. For zone of inhibition, what you will need to do is you will use the upside down part simply because you are going to use a ruler and directly measure it. Okay, you're going to use a ruler to directly measure it. Now, if you look here, I'm just using two groups plates. You will notice that the zone of inhibition, they are almost never perfectly circled. That's theoretically it should be. In reality, they almost never will be. Okay, that's just how science is. Okay, theoretical, realistically, what happens? Now, in this case, how would you measure the zone of inhibition if the zone, this one is the largest that you can easily see, is irregularly shaped? How would you measure it so that you can capture the best information? It's not going to be perfect, but it's better than, it's one of the better ways. Yes?
Maybe try measuring the radius from the middle of the zone. Because like some people might try and measure from the white part in the middle, like maybe you can try just the middle of the circle in general.
Okay, so if you try from middle of the zone, and then you're going to measure, if let's just say from here, the distance will be slightly different from here. So
you can try the smallest radius and use that as your answer.
Use the smallest radius, okay? Then in this case, if you're only comparing the smallest radius, I'm guessing here right now, then in this case, you're kind of missing out on the certain piece that is here. It's really wide. Yes?
Try measuring it multiple times in different places and take the average.
You could do that, or one way to make it easiest. One way to make it easiest for the zone of inhibition, measure the longest. Now, not the radius, because if you remember, radius is from the center to the edge. You want to measure the longest diameter, so from edge to edge, okay? From edge of the colony to the edge of the, edge of the zone of inhibition to the other edge of zone of inhibition. You want to measure the longest diameter and the shortest diameter, okay? Longest diameter and plus shortest diameter, and then you find the average of that. Okay, average. Okay, it's not the most perfect measurement. Okay, but in terms of what we need to do, it will give us a good idea. Okay, measure the largest diameter, the shortest diameter, and then calculate the average. Okay, that will be your zone of inhibition. And the average would be here. Okay, the average will be here. Okay, the average. Are we good? The longest diameter, shortest diameter. So for you guys, what you guys are gonna do is this. So you guys will have quadrant 1. Let me zoom out a little bit. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You will now, because 3 and 4 are both the rubbing alcohol. What you will do is also find the average of these two sets of data. Average for these two also. Okay. So later on, tomorrow, when you guys are doing your part 3 and you are using different types of chemical, you're putting different kind of chemicals onto the plates, you can also see kind of like, oh, what will be, you can compare your result with rubbing alcohol. Okay. is that cleaner better than rubbing alcohol? Are we good? Yes.
For the zone of inhibition, are we putting the lengths, the 2 lengths, or are we putting down?
You write down the 2 lengths. So for example, here, let's just say, yeah, it's hard to. So I will kind of play around with it. And this is roughly about 12 millimeter, and this is roughly, and you kind of play around with it and find the shortest one. This looked like 10 millimeter, so you record 12 millimeter and 1 millimeter, longest and shortest, okay, from edge to edge. Are we good? Okay. So in your lab group, you guys will be recording that. Write down the shape, write down the color, shape, if it is irregular or if you have isolated groups. What you also need to do too is take pictures. Take pictures. So make sure you take a picture of your, make sure you take a picture of your plate. Make sure that you can always tell what quadrant it is. When you take the picture, you should take picture from the top part, then you can see it a little bit better that way. Take a picture from the top, take a picture from the bottom parts to help you see the quadrants. Okay. So take a picture from the top, take a picture from the bottom. After you are done taking pictures and doing your measurements, you will return your plates back up here and you will put it back in this section, okay? You will not open this when you're making down observation or taking picture. That's just the rule, okay? So that's just the rule so that you don't risk contamination or risk getting infected, even though risk is pretty low. Are we good? Now, in the meanwhile, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to call lab groups up, okay? Remember lab groups. I'm going to call research groups up, and I'm going to take a look in terms of your sources as well as your handwritten notes at the time, okay? So while you guys are in your group taking pictures and recording data of your plate 2, I'm going to call people up to check their handwritten notes. Now, if let's just say you've done recording and I have already checked your notes and you're kind of like just waiting, what you should do at this point is check in with your partners. Check in with your partners. A good number of you were not there on Tuesday because you were part of the assembly. So on Tuesday, your partners have signed up already in terms of, for part 3 of the experiment, you guys are going to test either 3 different cleaners and measure their zone of inhibition later on, or 3 different concentration of the same cleaner. Okay, so you guys should have talked about that. So make sure you and your teammate knows about it. And what you're gonna do is talk about what you guys are gonna do tomorrow, because you guys are going to have 2 or 3 plates, depending whether you have a backup or not. Okay. Okay. Any questions? So that's the first part of what you guys are going to do. Record result, take pictures, and I'm going to be asking groups to come up and check the handwritten notes. Any questions? No? All right.